Singapore's next arts plan is set to unlock new opportunities for the creative economy. Culture, Community and Youth Minister Edwin Tong in Parliament has outlined the key shifts to come.
And there are quite a few of them. Like arts and heritage, sports brings people together, and the government wants to optimise sporting facilities and spaces here to encourage more people to play together. And for more, we're joined in the studio by Minister Tong. Minister, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Don.
So let's start off with what you said in Parliament today. You gave a very meaningful speech about the plans to grow the creative economy. You talked about how arts and heritage are so much a part of our social compact and what it means in society. And you talked about these prospects for future graduates, but making a living in the arts world, whether it's in performance art or whether it's in dance arts or in creative arts, it's never typically seen as being something that is going to give you, a great job or a salary, right? Can it? And how are we going to do that?
Well, I think, I, for one, am very excited about the potential and the prospects of the creative economy, partly because of the repressed demand during COVID. I think we've seen a big rush now to attend events. You mentioned music, dance, production, theatre, even exhibitions has been very well attended. So I think there is a lot of potential on the demand side. On the supply side, we have the University of Arts coming through. And with that, graduates coming on stream, lending their skills to the creative economy. And if you overlay that with the impact of digitalization, the ability to go to new audiences, the ability to go deeper with your existing audience or find new markets. I think all of this coming together gives us a lot of joy, a lot of excitement. And I think there's a lot to be said about the progress of the creative economy.
And I think even identifying it as the creative economy is an important part,
Yes.
A first step, as it were.
It is, because, if you look at how we consume content today, everyone has a mobile device, everyone has a digital device. Lots of material is consumed using these devices. And I think this is the way to connect with new audiences. I'll give you one example. We have a Van Gogh exhibition now in Singapore, the immersive experience. And it's a completely different way of presenting art form. You are very used to seeing Starry, Starry Night, in the gallery, in the museum, but it is now presented on a huge scale with music, presentation, there's graphics, movement, and all of this is really part of the new digital creative economy. And the skill sets behind that, the value add that we can give to new audiences, all of this are untapped potential, and we must be there.
Yeah.
All right. Since you mentioned Van Gogh, digitalization perhaps can bring it to different platforms so more people can enjoy different forms of the original art form. But Van Gogh, the reason why people appreciate it is because it is sublime on so many levels. So if you do not have that sublime original source, it doesn't matter how much you leverage it with the metaverse or any kind of digital device, you haven't got it. So what are we doing to develop this fabulous talent so that we can then use technology to spread it even further?
Well, the point you're making is that the original content has got to be good in the first place, and through whichever format and medium you present it in, it is still as good. But I would beg to differ slightly. I would say if you're able to look at that content afresh, and the people who I saw attend the Van Gogh experience, along with others, were not your typical audiences who would usually be you closely associated with art appreciation in the traditional sense. So I think you're reaching out to a new audience through this format. But you're also right in saying that we must also go back to the basics and ensure that our art form, our arts practitioners level up. And one announcement we made today was to look at Singapore designers in the field of architecture, design, furniture, for example. We have lots of talent there. And it's also a question of showcasing them, allowing more Singaporeans to see and also appreciate the work that they do.
Part of that creative process, Minister, it is about, experimentation. It's about incubation as well,
Yes.
giving these artists the tools that they need. And that takes a lot of time. They're not necessarily paid during that process, that sort of firing up of their creative
Yes.
spirit. So again, to this issue of creating like a pathway for them, are there going to be I mean, will the competency framework, the frameworks that are being developed for other sectors as well, could that be a way in which this sort of ecosystem to support them could be developed?
Indeed. I think, Dawn, you've sort of hit the nail on the head, because it's about two things, I feel. One, developing new skill sets. And many of these practitioners that we have spoken about, they are usually self-employed, gig workers. So they're not part of a big company, not part of an organization. So the question for us is, how do we ensure that they scale up in their skill sets? And so we have a competency framework that identifies what is needed in the new economy, in the new creative economy. And going back to the Van Gogh experience or example, in that whole production, you'll find that you need people with a varied set of skills. People doing the lighting, the sound, the video, broadcast, the technology content, the digital content as well, how you present it, the lighting. All of that would not have been something you needed in a traditional art presentation. So new skill sets coming through. The other element that I feel is important is we need to be prepared to give spaces for this to happen. Earlier in the show, you talked about Kampong Java, you talked about Armenian Street. These are spaces that the government is prepared to let the arts ecosystem, the arts community, take the lead on telling us what they want to see in terms of incubation, experimentation. A little bit of messiness in that space is something that I think we need. So we are very much prepared to allow that to happen.
Speaking of spaces, these school football academies to feed a pipeline of talent. This initiative has been in place since 2021. I think to ask for success stories 1 year on or 2 years on is premature. But when you set up these schools, what are your benchmarks? What are you looking for? How do you judge the success of projects like these?
Yeah, this is really designed as a long-term plan. I mean, we want to put the base in place, grow the base, ensure that there's a strong pipeline. So we had the school football academies a couple of years ago. We have a coaching syllabus. We have the talent scouting, the talent spotting, and so on. And today what we announced was really to put all these pieces together so that there's one direct, clear, cohesive national framework for the national team to benefit from this pool of players. What's our framework and benchmark? I think as long as we see progression, our age group teams progressing, we will see that as a plus. We want to see a constant improvement at the SFAs, and the way in which they play, come together, and develop that pipeline will be another benchmark of success for us.
Thanks so much for joining us, Culture, Community and Youth Minister Edwin Tong. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.